Israeli hostages taken by the terror group Hamas could be going home in the next few days. The hostages sent to be released are reportedly beginning at 10 a.m. Jerusalem time on Thursday include 30 children, 8 mothers and 12 other women, all with Israeli citizenship. Israel will exchange 150 Palestinian women and minors detained on security offenses in Israeli jails, but none directly involved in terror attacks with fatalities. The deal also included a provision for the Red Cross to visit the remaining hostages and provide medicine. The agreement also includes a pause in the Gaza fighting, many also calling it a ceasefire. Once the hostages and prisoners exchange is complete over the 4-day period, the military campaign to destroy Hamas will most likely resume. Qatar has been negotiating between the two sides. Mike?
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has pledged to continue the Gaza war despite the hostage deal pause. Opponents claim it will harm Israel's ability to gain the release of all of the hostages, complicate the ousting of Hamas from Gaza, and make resuming the war more difficult once halted. Netanyahu dismissed those concerns.
That not only will the war effort not be compromised, on the contrary, this will allow the IDF to prepare for the continuation of the fighting. And I would like to make it clear here again, the war continues. The war will continue until we achieve all of our goals, to eliminate Hamas, to return all our hostages, to ensure that the day after Hamas, Gaza will no longer be a threat to Israel.
That, of course, was a translation of him speaking in Hebrew. Critics predict Hamas, who has also reportedly agreed to adhere to the ceasefire in southern Lebanon, Hezbollah, will reportedly refortify itself during the pause, and IDF soldiers could become targets of kidnappings or worse. As part of the agreement, Israel will also not fly drones over southern Gaza during certain hours. With the latest from Israel, here is Steve Leibowitz with the ILTV Israel 365 report for Victory News.
IDF Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Herzi Halevi says the military pressure on Hamas was creating better conditions for the release of hostages, and the pressure will continue up until and immediately after the 4-day ceasefire. Visiting troops in the field ahead of the expected announcement of the ceasefire, Halevi said that the war would continue. The goals had not changed: dismantle Hamas and return the hostages. The IDF spokesman insisted that the temporary ceasefire in Gaza will not impact the Army's main goal of eliminating Hamas rule. The IDF has gained control of most, but not all, of northern Gaza, and clashes are ongoing to eliminate terrorist pockets of resistance. The challenge is to wrap up the fighting in the north and take defensive positions by the time the ceasefire takes effect. Hezbollah is indicating that during the ceasefire in Gaza, it may temporarily halt cross-border rocket fire into Israel. The fighting on the Lebanese border is ongoing. An Israeli drone strike killed 4 Hamas terrorists based in Lebanon. The strike occurred in the village of Khatia, near the Mediterranean coast. Later, IDF reprisals struck several Hezbollah anti-tank missile squads in southern Lebanon and other sites in response to missile fire toward Metula. There have been more than 1,000 missile and rocket and drone attacks carried out by Hezbollah and allied Palestinian factions in Lebanon since the outbreak of Israel's war against Hamas in Gaza. Steve Leibowitz for ILTV, Victory News.
Thank you, Steve. In related news, the Israeli Defense Force say interrogations by its secret intelligence unit confirm Hamas is using hospitals in Gaza for terror operations. The IDF released videos of interviews with terrorists and Gaza citizens, including one of a terrorist who says he was inside the Shifa hospital. He estimated he saw up to 100 other terrorists inside the heart of its operations, including the intensive care unit, which he says infuriated medical staff that he knows there. The detainee said other terrorists dressed as nurses and doctors to blend in. Another Gaza resident who works at the Hamas-run Ministry of Health said Hamas terrorists were also staying at the Palestinian Red Cross complex, where his family and about 40,000 other refugees were seeking shelter. He feared they could have been killed, or they could have killed him and his family if confronted about their activities, including hiding rockets and other arms inside mattresses. Greg?
All right, let's talk with the constitutional attorney, Victory News contributor Chris Ann Hall. Chris Ann, welcome to Victory News on the day before Thanksgiving.
Yes, thank you so very much. It's a pleasure to be here on the day before Thanksgiving.
So the IDF confirms Hamas uses hospitals and Israel accepts a 4-day pause. They're going to trade 150 Palestinian prisoners for 50 hostages. But I want you to listen to Mossab Hassan Youssef. He is the son of Hamas founder. He reminds us of what's at risk here. I'll get your comment.
If Hamas is not defeated in Gaza, it will inspire many groups around the globe. If Israel fails in Gaza, all of us, we will be next.
Chrisanne Youssef believes Western civilization is at stake in the Hamas war. Your response?
Well, I do believe that the neo-Marxist principles that drive Hamas are violently and aggressively anti-Western civilization. I do think it's a bit hyperbolic to and inconsistent with history to assume that the Hamas war itself will dictate the fate of Western civilization. But I do agree that if Hamas is given the encouragement of a victory here, that it will inspire others. I wonder sometimes, though, if the greater threat in America does not come from Hamas, but from Hamas sympathizers in the United States.
Right. Okay, let's talk about the election here. Fulton County, Georgia, has now acknowledged 3,600 ballots from the 2020 election audit were duplicated, and the discrepancy has been turned over to the Georgia Attorney General for investigation. Will this have any bearing on Donald Trump's trial there?
You know, it's really a question that only Donald Trump's attorneys can answer. In a trial, the existence of evidence is not the same as the admission of evidence. And what evidence is admitted and not admitted will be left in the hands of the attorneys and the court itself.